Everybody here. I'm going to try it in the afternoon just to see how it's going. To be honest, I'm not sure if this show is going to be successful or not. I'm not the only one in the studio at the moment, but I am the only one over the age of 18. So this could be fun, might not. Thought I'd try it out. While I'm waiting for people to see how many actually show up, to let you guys know, you can always check me out at twitter.com/lore reloaded. A lot of fun stuff coming up in the future, including, but not limited to, Saturday I will be having a manager, what is it called? Community manager from Star Trek Online. We'll be playing Star Trek Online, doing a lot of giveaways, Saturday at 9 p.m. Central Standard. The Discovery Post Show, Sunday, 9 p.m. Central Standard, is coming back, so I can't wait to see you guys there. We're going to be looking at Discovery and probably giving our less than stellar review. Hopefully it's good, though. And Eagle Moss, I'm partnering with Eagle Moss. I'm going to be doing a brand new series on lore of starships. We're going to start with Trek, but then we're going to go from there. And they're going to be sending me some models so that we can break it down, look at those models. It's going to be a lot of fun. You guys have been requesting that. First ship is going to be Akura. Next ship's going to be Voyager. We got Defiant. And then both classes of the Bird of Prey, including the cruiser, the Klingon Bird of Prey, the cruiser, and the Burrell. So I'm really excited about that. Going to be a lot of fun. Raven just got the notification. How you doing? Zeron the Gamer, what's up? 14K Liam. Arjon in the house. Stargate Alabasta. What you guys up to? Again, this is me just seeing what's happening. I will start doing this a little bit more regularly so I can get my European and Asian and Russian fans. But usually it'll be at night. But I will do some of this so that, there's a good interaction. Now, why are we doing this episode? The community tab had done a vote, and it only won by like 2% to analyze assimilation. So I was sitting there trying to put together a video. And, I work on this days in advance, but the more I worked on it, up until this morning, there just wasn't enough information. I felt like I couldn't really get a video out that was worth anything, especially for a Trek series. So I figured I'd come on and we could talk about it here. Because, again, there's not a lot to it, but I'd be interested in your guys' opinions. When you look at assimilation, generally, the first time we do see it is at Wolf 359, and there's two forms of assimilation. The first form of assimilation is to be done by direct surgery. Now, direct surgery, we see that done with Picard specifically. We never see him hit with the nanoprobes or nanites or anything like that. And we also, and I rewatched the video, because when I was doing research, it would appear that in the Voyager episode Raven, or The Raven, when 7 of 9 was assimilated, they didn't use tubules then either. And I rewatched the episode, never saw any tubules used, so it's quite possible that there have been two eras when it comes to the assimilation of the Borg, or the way the Borg assimilate. Which is, they first started out just doing it straight surgery on the person. And then when they got the nanoprobe technology, when they got the tubules, they began to instantly inject the person and then assimilate them from the inside out. So here's a question for you, and I'm going to give it a second for you guys to catch up so we can talk about it. Unless you guys have seen something that I haven't, unless we have evidence 7 of 9 was hit with tubules, let's assume that 7 of 9, Annika was her name, and Picard was done via surgery, and of course 7 of 9's parents. Did they get nanoprobe and nanite technology from the Federation? Hear me out on this. At Wolf 359, the Enterprise D, they were talking about ways of combating the Borg. And they wanted to use, it was not chemical warfare, but they wanted to use some underhanded tactics, such as nanites or nanoprobes. They specifically even bring that out. So is it possible that when the Borg assimilated some of the people at Wolf 359, they assimilated scientists who are aware of this technology and formed it to make it so that they could use it? Did the Federation or Starfleet give them nanoprobe technology? So I want to know your guys' thoughts. And what's interesting is I think the Wolf 359, what we see in Wolf 359, where it's just surgery being done to Picard, is a lot more scary, I want to say. No, horrifying is the word I'm looking for. Very horrific. Because you even see him crying. I mean, it's some crazy stuff. Picard didn't get tubes in his neck at any point. Nope. Stargate Alabaster, I rewatched the episode myself. The only thing that did happen to him is he got hit. He got something stuck in his neck to pacify him, but we don't see any assimilation take place, especially the way we see it in Voyager and First Contact. And at no other point was he ever hit with tubules. I never understood why they had Picard keep his biological arm under the mechanical one. Yeah, that didn't make a lot of sense either. When he brings his hand up like that, and then it's put on, I agree. What is the lifespan of assimilated people? See, that's my thing. It doesn't necessarily tell us any information on how long a person can survive. I would say that they could last, a person could live a lot longer than if they were just human. It seems like their bodies are brought to a minimum, which would allow them to live longer, but there's no specific one. Picard never gets tubed in the neck. I'll challenge you. I'll push back on that. Please give me a timestamp within the Best of Both Worlds where he gets tubed in the neck, where it clearly shows him tubed in the neck. Not when he's pacified, not when he's captured, because that's not tubes in the neck. They just put it to his thing to knock him out. We then see him after. He's fine. He's not being assimilated. There is no reason to believe that that was the assimilation process. It doesn't work like the assimilation process at all. Stargate Alabaster says, I have a theory. The Borg used tubes to start the assimilation process, then surgery to specialize the drones. I can agree with that, actually, and that has a lot of evidence for it, especially in First Contact. I don't remember... And in Voyager too, yeah. So in First Contact, you'll see that they'll hit them and then they take them back to engineering where they specialize them out. I think that is correct. But I think they got the tubules later, or they possibly got the tubules later, and then they just added it to that process. Now, I could be wrong. They could have tubules, but I don't think you see it. And I think it would be... I just like the idea that the attack on Starfleet at Wolf 359 gave the Borg the tubule knowledge. That has a horrifying appeal to me. Let's see what you guys are saying. Matt Whitaker, I believe it's referenced that the tech was assimilated between the Next Generation and Voyager. If that's true, then it's quite possible that they got it from the Federation, because that would make sense, from the Next Generation to Voyager. Revan, for assimilation, you can point out how it doesn't make sense. Nanoprobes go in and make cybernetics, but where does all the material for construction come from? I understand that. I never really questioned it. It's one of those things that never really broke the fourth wall for me, because if the Borg are so advanced, then they could begin to almost have their own not assimilation. They could make their own things, their own what's the technology that can make things out of thin air? Replicator. They could have their own replication technology, just at a smaller level. So I get it, but I don't think it's outside of the norm. We see things appear out of thin air with the Federation. They just really made it micro, like extremely micro. Zion the Gamer says, in my idea, that is, the Borg simulated a very powerful scientist, but his mind took control of the nanoprobes. Okay. 14K Liam, hey, this one is just out of nowhere, so there's no reason to be sorry for being late. It's interesting, too. If you watch the Borg, the only thing we ever see assimilated is bipedal forms. Now, that's not including Star Trek Online. I'm talking about Alpha Canon. I think that's interesting. I know in real life why it's done, because it's a lot cheaper. But one of the interesting things is that the Borg really freak out when they can't assimilate something. I give Voyager a lot of hate. I give Janeway a lot of hate. But one thing I do like about Voyager when it comes to the Borg is they do kind of expand their mythos and give them a logical flaw to me. The Borg don't necessarily adapt in the way that we look at adaptation. They can adapt as long as they can get an understanding of what they're looking at. So once they begin to look at your computer, once they begin to assimilate you, they can then adapt to what you've presented to them, or if they've encountered it in the past. So they're not innovative on their own, but they can adapt as long as they can get a hold of you. I think that's an interesting flaw that makes sense with the Borg. And again, I almost wish we see more Borg so we can see how assimilation works or how they deal with species that they can't use the tubules on, right? I think that'd be very interesting. Ogre36 in the house saying fans complain about the Borg not having nanoprobes initially, but I believe it's just an evolution in Borg tech. However, the real explanation is the development of the Borg in the writer's room. Well, that's a real explanation for everything, Ogre36. I'm not complaining about it. I think it's interesting. I like when things advance and make sense. Or they add something new, but it's not out of nowhere, right? So, like, if you take The Last Jedi, might be minor spoilers here, and you have the Force do things that you've never seen it do before, when people in the past could have done it, that doesn't make any sense. That hurts the work. I think that's bad writing. But when it comes to the nanoprobes with the Borg, just because we don't see it in Wolf 359 or in the Next Generation, doesn't mean it's not a logical next step that could be explained, if that makes any sense. Hey, a stream that isn't in the middle of the night, says Ben Harding. I'm doing this for you. As I said, I'm not the only one in the studio today, but I am the only one that's over the age of 18, so I'm not sure how this is going to go, especially if someone needs me. I will start doing these in the afternoon or the morning for me, for all of the other world, all of my fans in Asia, in Europe, in Russia, so that you're not up at the middle of the night. Most of my streams will be at night, will be at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, but I'm going to do at least 1, 2, or 3 for you guys. The Borg are that foe. Star Trek needs a full movie to push the power of the Borg. Zion the Gamer says, by creating Borg drones, Iva massive factories, and what do you think of my idea, Mr. Lorguy? Okay, you're going to need to re-say your idea, because I got a lot of people talking, so I don't know. I wonder what the Kelvin Borg is like. I would say the Kelvin Borg are probably more like the, what is it? I want to say the collaborative, but it's obviously not that. It's not the collective. It's something that's a play on the collaborative, that sounds better. The STO version of the collective is what I would say they probably are. Thanks for vids. Make the workday go faster. Derek F., I am here for you. But yeah, if you're also watching this video on demand, definitely let me know if you like this. I was just going to upload a video on assimilation. There's just not enough information. So I figured I'd come on and have a chat with you guys. Can we blame Wesley Crusher because all Picard had seen of nanotech was when Wesley had created? That's what I was... I said this before. Maybe you missed it. I think it would be so cool if it was confirmed that the Federation or Starfleet is how the Borg got nanoprobes or nanotechnology. I mean, we do see a dead species 8472 assimilated, says Revan. If you're talking in Alpha Canon, that sounds vaguely familiar. I think they really had an issue doing that, though. I don't think they ever successfully, in Alpha Canon, assimilated the species 8472. So here's a question for you. They can't assimilate them through the tubules, so they have to do it via surgery. They have to put them down and just go all crazy on them, right? How does that change the tactics of the Borg? Now, in Wolf 359, we only really see them go after Picard, I think. I don't remember any other assimilations. So would they stun him? But they don't use, in Alpha Canon, I don't think they ever use long-range weapons. So they have to get up there. How would that work? You guys, what do you guys think? And Nathan says, I prefer the surgery assimilation. It's more body horror, sci-fi. I tell you, when I first watched, The Best of Both Worlds as a kid. But I remember watching it just about a month ago whenever I was doing the Battle of Wolf 359, and how I must have just blocked this out, how horrified I was when he was on the table. Picard cries because of what they're doing to him. That just struck a chord with me. That's why I like that versus just the assimilation, right? I get the assimilation. It's fine, but I think it's more horrific if they do. They capture you, they throw you on a slab, you're aware of what's happening, and you're being assimilated. Well, a scientist gets assimilated by the Borg, but he begins to fight off the nanoprobes. He slowly takes over the collective, says Zeron the Gamer. Okay. That sounds like something Star Trek Online would put together. Ogre says, I'm not sure if the Federation gave them the entirety of nanoprobe tech, but it definitely could have seen a key piece combined from tech from another assimilated. Yeah, so Ogre36 brings up a good point. I'm not sure if the Federation gave them the entirety of the nanoprobe tech, but it definitely could have been a key piece combined from tech from another assimilated species. I agree. They got the nanoprobes or the nanotech perhaps refined, and then when it comes to the injectors and things like that, maybe it was from previous species. Maybe they were already working on it. By the way, if you guys want to know a fun fact you can make fun of me with, when I'm recording, when I've written my script, I've done my script, I go through it about 4 times, and I'm recording, and I talk, you notice I talk with my hands a lot. I actually do this while I'm recording, even though no one else is watching. My wife was laughing at me one time, because I do. I go like this, and I talk, and I'm very expressive, even though I've been told that I can put people to sleep, that I should start an ASMR with just my voice. But still, when I'm talking, I do all this stuff. Nexus says, I understand from the point of the game, every faction has more military, but geez, where are the Borg getting all these ships in Star Trek Online? Well, they've invaded the Alpha Quadrant and the Beta Quadrant, so I'm sure they have tons of ships. Plus, I mean, the Delta Quadrant has a lot of species as well, right? Richard Thomas and the Borg never actually got Voyager's nanoprobe technology that the Doctor invented to defeat Species 8472. Yeah, people keep saying that. I'll be happy. I'm going to go and rewatch Scorpion, and then Scorpion 1 and 2, and then the episode where they make peace. People keep saying that. I remain unconvinced that they didn't get it. I think the Borg would overpower and force, like when they nab data. So what if they couldn't? What if they couldn't assimilate? Would they just use force? Which makes sense. I mean, there's nothing else they could do. Why don't they use phaser technology? I never got that. Was there any explanation of why they wouldn't just use disruptors or phasers to knock people out? I don't necessarily completely understand that myself. Supposedly, there has been multiple iterations of the Borg throughout history. The Borg have been written differently throughout the series. Early series, The Next Generation, into mid-series, The Next Generation, the Borg there are far different than what we see in late TNG, First Contact, DS9, and Voyager. I find the book Star Trek Destiny a very interesting book about the beginning and ending of the Borg. Have I read Destiny? I don't remember that. I'll look it up. I know I've had a request. It may have actually been you, Arjan, who asked me to do a breakdown of Destiny. I don't mind. It isn't alpha canon, so it's not going to be something that when I put what is lore in a video that I will include that, because it's not alpha canon, but I'd be happy to take a look at it. Phaser technology does not merge well with other technology and is inefficient for their purposes, so the Borg don't use it. I don't. So how is phaser technology or disruptor technology inefficient? The Borg, when they assimilate, often have to chase their prey, right? And they're often set up in traps. Now, how is it inefficient to knock the person out and then assimilate them? I don't understand how that would be inefficient, in my opinion. You mentioned earlier the Borg's flaw earlier on how they adapt, but what is the scope of their adaptability? I find it inconsistent how in some instances they must assimilate it to understand. What's up, Samovarati? My understanding of the Borg is that they have to assimilate to understand. I don't think there's been any inconsistencies in that. any inconsistencies, if there are any, and I can't think of any, you could explain away that they've already encountered. So, for instance, with phaser technology, when they're able to adapt to it, dollars to donuts, they've already encountered phaser technology, so they know what they're dealing with. However, with the technology we see when it comes to the phasers and the torpedoes, when the Enterprise just unloads on the Borg, the very first interaction that they have, it does some major damage to it. What was it, like 20% damage or something like that? I mean, it just tears that Borg a new one. Because the Borg had never interacted with it. The Borg, until Voyager, never used shields. Here's the thing. I love Borg technology in this way, at least in the Next Generation. Changes after Voyager, but whatever. They never used shields. They had like force fields and they had barriers that would adapt to the technology. So anything you threw at it at first would do the amount of damage it was supposed to do. It would absolutely rip into the Borg. But after that, it would adapt. And I love that. I think that's better than shielding. Shielding blocks almost everything, but the Borg adaptation will take its first hit, but after that, you're never getting another one. Robert Kalinick, why every Borg drone is human? Most, not all. Most are human, and that's because of budgetary concerns, my friend. Yeah, there are other races. I mean, they're technically not human, but why do they look human? I brought that up beforehand. It's funny, but all the Borg ever assimilate is bipedal, right? But that's just... I mean, if we're going to talk about it in universe, it could perhaps be just the interactions that they've had and the fact that most species in the galaxy are bipedal, which they address why that is. So I think that you could do a percentages argument. Let's see. The cutting beam the Borg used in the Next Generation was not used in Voyager. I guess, was it? I thought they cut into Voyager a couple of times, or at least once. You know what I like? What I think is devastating, and I don't think gets enough credit, is the holding beam. The holding beam doesn't work like tractor beams. You can use the holding beam to grab you can use a holding beam first off to grab a ship with its shields on, which, by the way, is a feat in and of itself. You can then drain those shields, grab onto it, hold it, or break it. That is the most devastating weapon. I don't know why other species haven't tried to adapt that. Because that is just a devastating a weapon and ability, in my opinion. Let's see. What happens when the Borg assimilate everything in the universe? What do they do then? Then they have a pizza party, because they now have a perfection in the world. So it's going to be, you might have missed this, it's kind of subtexty, it's in between the lines, but if you watch Scorpion and you watch First Contact, and you also got to watch Nemesis, even though the Borg aren't in there, they kind of discuss it. Once the Borg take over all of the galaxy, they're going to hold a huge pizza party. And everybody's going to be invited, because there's no racism or anything, because it's they're all Borg. So let's see. In Voyager, the Borg Queen ship had Borg torpedoes. They still had torpedoes. They had so again, this is what I'm saying. Early the Next Generation versus First Contact and Voyager are far different. They had torpedoes. They had missiles, but those were designed to lower shields. They weren't meant to really do damage. So they've always had torpedoes, but in Voyager they become far more like the Federation or the Klingon Empire. They have shields, they have phasers, they have torpedoes. Voyager fired only one nano-torpedo at species 8472 when Janeway threatened them with more and they gave up. The Borg never got nanotech from Janeway. It was a major plot point in Scorpion. They did. I will say that I might be wrong. And that's as far as I'm going to give you, Hainer Tim, because I've watched it, and it really seems very clear. It was very clear to me that they sent it. Memory Alpha backs up what I do, though Memory Alpha has been wrong in the past. I'll grant that. And they fired at 2 torpedoes, to be exact. They fired one directly and destroyed a ship. Or maybe 4. They at least fired one and destroyed one ship. Then they fired another one and destroyed a flotilla. They fired 2 definitively. But yeah. Yeah. Multiverse assimilation. I mean, I was joking with the pizza party, obviously, but that'd be interesting. But yeah, maybe they start going into different universes and trying to assimilate them. Now the Star Trek, especially in the Next Generation, seems to support the multiverse universe. That every action you take, they have hyper time. That every action you can take, you will take. In some form or another. So I imagine that since they've taken that, there is a universe with the Borg who have assimilated that and have started assimilating other universes. That would be scary right there. What I want to know is why the Borg never decided to use time travel in any meaningful way except for First Contact. Why they never went back to give themselves technology, I don't know. So, Berman is why they've used it once and never again. Though, I mean, there are tons of things like that in Star Trek. If that gets you upset, then the Guardians, the Organians, that portal that you can go anywhere in time, the fact that the Federation, Starfleet time travels, there's tons of things that are inconsistent. So I tend to let that go more than many. One thing I heard, though, is that they wanted to do a time travel where they go back to, like, the days of Robin Hood. How bad of an idea would that have been? I'm pretty sure there's a book about the Mirror Borg invading Prime Timeline because the Terran Empire are destroying them. That would make sense. I could see books. I mean, there's some very interesting expanded universe beta canon books out there. I love some of the Dominion War books where you get to meet other people who were a part of the Dominion War, but you get to see it from their eyes. I think it's very interesting. Richard Thomas, actually, they fired 4 in fluidic space and killed 4 bioships, and then they got back to normal space. They fired a high-yield warhead that killed 13 bioships. Yep, that's what I was saying. I knew they at least fired 2 at a minimum, but then I remembered they were being attacked by at least 3 bioships in fluidic space. So Robin Hood Borg, steal from the advanced to give to the primitives. It's horrible. Horrible. I mean, could the Q just snap a finger and the Borg are gone? So that's a huge conversation there, and one I'm not sure I'm going to completely get into today. There has been a theory, and the writing supports that there was going to be an arc in Voyager where the Q had done all of this in order to defeat the Borg because the Borg were the one thing the Q actually feared. I'm actually of the opinion that the Q do fear the Borg to a degree. That's why they don't mess with the Borg. And I think that they were using humanity as a pawn in order to ensure that the Borg are destroyed. Which, again, makes a lot of sense to me. I think that the Q, who can see all of time, and somewhat can see possible timelines, I think if they had to choose between who their what's the word I'm looking for? Who their equal was going to be. If it had to be humans or Borg, obviously you're going to want humans, right? Crimson Studios in the house. What is going on? How you doing? I hope the Borg don't assimilate dogs. I don't think they'd assimilate dogs. I think they'd euthanize every animal they met. There's no reason. The intelligence isn't there. I mean, they don't keep pets. What about the idea that the Borg can only hold on to a limited number of phaser frequencies they are adapted to at one time? I guess that would explain how they went through all of the phaser technologies in the Next Generation, and then in Voyager they could do it again. Especially if you consider that they're fighting multiple battles. I mean, the Borg would have to be fighting multiple wars almost constantly if they're constantly assimilating. And so if the phaser frequency that they have to go through is limited, then they're always going to be scanning through that depending on the Borg depending on who they're fighting, which would be interesting. Richard Thomas, you're the best. I love you. Why would the Q fear the Borg? We never find out. I mean, there is evidence there is, even when Q, John Delancey, I think is his name, Q, there is evidence to believe that they fear the Q. or the Q fear the Borg. And I think it'd be interesting because perhaps maybe the Borg were working towards assimilating the Q, but weren't able to figure it out yet. But the Q knew that if they continued, that they would move forward. Now, could the Q destroy them? This is the problem with God characters, right? Why wouldn't the Q just redo all of this? There is a theory that the Q actually aren't gods, that it's like the Thor movies, where when Thor does things that make him look like a god, it's actually just advanced technology that you can't understand. So there is a theory that the Q aren't as all-powerful. They are just... they're just an evolved, advanced species that has technology that makes them look like gods. There is some evidence to that. If you remember, Q feared Guinan, who was an El-Orion, right? Or I don't know how you say it. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. And he even wanted to destroy her. He put his hands up. Both of them put up like they were about to put up a fight. So I don't know that there aren't species like the Borg that may be able to counter the Q. Because he feared Guinan, so obviously there are ones that can take on the Q. Let's see. Why did the Borg not go after Romulans, Klingons, and Cardassians? There's evidence to suggest they did go after the Romulans. You remember in The Next Generation, several Romulan outposts went missing, were just completely destroyed, and just like they were wiped off the face of the planet. The Romulans assumed it was the Starfleet, who obviously was not, and it seemed like it was consistent that it was actually the Borg doing that. The reason why they went after the Federation before they went after the Romulans, the Cardassians, and the Klingons, I would say, in-universe, is because Starfleet was a lot weaker and willing to do a lot less than what the other three empires would have done to survive. Out of universe, it's because we're human and we're rooting for Starfleet and the Federation. That's my explanation. I mean, I could be wrong on that. Robert Kalinik says Borg shields are resistant to phasers, but what about kinetic weapons like Picard and Thompson? Here's the thing. Until you get to Voyager, Borg didn't have shields. I've kind of talked about this already, but we'll go over it one more time. Borg didn't have shields. They used force fields. They used subspace fields that would adapt to whatever you threw at it. So, for instance, when we have first contact on Starfleet's side, as far as they know, with the Enterprise D and the Borg Cube, they fired phasers and torpedoes and just pwned that Borg Cube. They did, 20 to 30% damage, just something stupid to it, right? But every shot after that had no effect because those fields aren't shields. They adapt to whatever you hit. You get one shot with them, and after that, they've adapted. And I like that. Now, in Voyager, they have shields that work like shields, which is unfortunate. I wish they had kept it the way it was. But for the Next Generation, even kinetic stuff would ultimately be stopped because the shields adapt. Not the shields, the force fields and stuff adapt. You're completely right about the Q being just super advanced. They make them appear as gods. The Q Quinn said so to Tuvok during the hearing to determine his right to die. Okay. I don't remember that, but I can believe him saying that. Didn't the JJ timeline establish that large changes to the timeline could create branching universes instead of changes to the universe? That would also be something I don't remember, but what I do know is in the Next Generation, they all but confirmed, well, they did, they confirmed, they even talk about how hypertime exists and how you have multiverses, infinite amount of multiverses. Because the Enterprise appears, you even see a universe where the Borg won, which is actually how I got my start. I saw that video, I did a what-if scenario on it, and that's actually what propelled my channel to where it is now, so... Could the Federation's biodiversity could it be the Federation's biodiversity that interested the Borg? I don't think so. I don't see any advantage biodiversity has over going after the Romulans or the Klingons or the Cardassians. The only reason that might come into play is because it's bigger. There's more resources for them to use. But there's no reason why Starfleet being diverse is any advantage. In fact, that only seems like more of a disadvantage because species are going to react differently to assimilation processes. Whereas if you're generally only dealing with Cardassians, Romulans, or Klingons, then you'll generally only have to deal with one anatomy. The humans of Independence Day could defeat the Borg by sneaking inside a nuke and then boom. Well, yeah, they did that a couple of times. They've blown up a Borg cube from the inside like 3 or 4 times. They did it in Voyager. Didn't they? I think they did it in Voyager twice, and they did it in Enterprise once. So, hey, and greetings from the Netherlands. What's up, Rick? Rick, I am doing these. I'm going to start doing this more and more during this time, or if not earlier, probably about 4 or 5 hours earlier. For you guys. So hopefully this is a good time. Let me know if this is a good time for the Netherlands so I can be aware. Let's see. Though we are going to be ending it pretty shortly. I mean, again, I was going to do a video on it, but there just wasn't enough there. So I kind of just wanted to get my thoughts out, see what you guys were up. Again, do something a little bit earlier. Don't forget to make sure you have the alerts on, especially for the community tab. Tomorrow I'm going to be putting up the things we vote on for what I do on Friday. You guys may not know this, but every Friday, the videos done on Friday are specifically voted on from Saturday to Wednesday. So go to my channel, go to the community tab, because I have polls, and it comes up about 10 o'clock Central Standard Time on Saturdays, 10 a.m. Good time for the UK also, says Bad Wolf Gamer. Cool. Ooh, we got 2 people from the Dutch, also known as Dutchy, apparently. It's disappointing that the Borg are overrated. They are brilliant, but we should remember they're just advanced, not gods. It's like the episode when Picard is seen as a god by those proto-Vulcans. Yeah, one of my major problems with the anti-tracker and with people who don't like my Dominion versus Borg video is they tend to look at the Borg as gods. I can't touch the Borg if the Borg are untouchable. So they can't be gods for us to have a scenario. And I know Anti-Tracker brought up some good arguments, I think, though I disagree with most of them. Still, I think Anti-Tracker and others treat the Borg like they're gods. By the way, Anti-Tracker's blown up now. Apparently he's the I wouldn't say alt-right, conservative voice of those who gets hired of like the slant in Hollywood and stuff like that, which is cool. I want his channel to blow up. I like him. Think he's a good guy. You guys should check him out. Take a look. Where is S.H.I.E.L.D. when you need to fight the Borg? I know, right? You know, talking about S.H.I.E.L.D., I love the very first episode. I love, let's see, what does S.H.I.E.L.D. stand for? Let's look it up. 1 second. So in the first episode, you have the main character, which I thought was great, says, what is S.H.I.E.L.D., sir? And he says, Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division. And then the interviewers ask him, so what does that mean to you? And it's the most awesome line. He's like, someone really wanted our name to be S.H.I.E.L.D. I thought that's funny. Maybe you have to be there. The first episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. was hilarious to me. Good time for Canada, says 14K Liam. I don't know if I read that, so there we go. Yeah, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the name of it. So, alright, so we're going to be ending this up pretty shortly. Anything else you guys wanted to add or us to talk about or stuff? Any interesting things to pull me in? If the Borg assimilated Chakotay/B'Elanna, do they know how to go to the Q continuum? Does Chakotay and B'Elanna know how to get to the Q continuum? Because I don't remember that at all. So let me know. By the way, just so you guys know, I will, in fact, when I do these generally, my shows will be an hour. I will make them an hour if I have anything to say about it. So the morning shows or the shows now, for those who like it now, will be as long as the shows at night. I try to do an hour at a minimum, and then I stay on as long as I think I have interaction and as long as I'm having fun. So that's where we're going with that. Hayner Tim, still stuck on trying to prove me wrong, I'm assuming. At the 38-minute mark, Scorpion, Part 2. 8472 ships destroyed by nanotorps, 13 destroyed by the superversion. They never hand over the nanoprobes and leave Borg space. I just watched. I'm telling you that she does send it over in that very episode you're watching, but I'll go and relook at it. Do the Borg use nanoprobes or surgery or both most of the time for assimilation? Asks Alec. We actually talked about this. They use... In Wolf 359 and in the episode The Raven, they use surgery. I never see the nanoprobes or the tubules used. It's only at Voyager and then First Contact that we see tubules being used. However, I think we all really agree, and it makes sense, that they use the tubules and then take you for further surgery and further customization for whatever your actual job is. A lot of people believe that the Earth was flat for the longest of times, too. So regardless of how many of you guys disagree that they never got the information, I'm going to go watch it. I'm admitting I could be wrong. But just because quite a few people say, yeah, they never got it, doesn't necessarily mean you're right. Just putting it out there. It does. Y'all don't know what you're doing. Okay. Why not replicate machine guns and shoot the Borg with regular bullets? I wonder if they would make armor to do it. I wonder if they would have made armor to set that off. So let's do this. Hold on. Let's do this. Y'all are gonna hear some typing. Do the Borg. Well, let me actually do this. Let's see. Species. So Memory Alpha, I know agrees with me. Let's see if there's any other resources. I can't watch it online because CBS will pop me. Let me see. I apologize for the quietness. Whoop. Thought I had done it. Borg would adapt shields and stop kinetic weapons. In this one instance, the Borg were unprepared for it. Beta canon, however, differs. Could the Borg adapt to a black hole? No, I don't think they could. Adapt to the black hole. Alright, so let's look at this. Because everybody knows, as we all can agree, forums with Trekkies is the best way to know the knowledge, and they never get it wrong, right? So let's look at some forums and see what forums say. Hey, Laura, what if that 29th century Borg joined the 24th century Borg? Then everybody would have died. They would have absolutely 100% died. Because 29th century Borg are just too powerful. Nanoprobes. First destroy and then use her nanoprobes to stop species 8472. Yeah, it didn't have anything on it. Why don't the Borg pursue Voyager? Species 8472 was more resistant than we anticipated. We're in the details. Dude, welcome to my channel. This channel is nothing but minutia. That's what we talk about, right? That's what this is about. Now the Borg are at war with 8472. They are losing. Yeah, I don't know, guys. I'll rewatch it, and if I'm wrong, I'll admit it on some future. I'll rewatch it on some future video. I remember specifically because the Borg, of course, turn on Voyager almost like instantly. And I do remember she's sending the information and they turn on Voyager. I really want to say, but you know what? I could be wrong. I could be wrong. It would be probably the first time, but I could be wrong. All right, I guess we're going to end it there. Hainer Tim, Don Juan, I don't know, I think Bad Wolf too. Everybody else who say that she didn't send the information, I guess we're going to find out because I'm going to watch it. Guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this. I will start doing more of these in the morning. It is my goal to commit to doing 3 at this time, if not earlier, so that we have more people who can come to it. I will continue to do 4 to 5 at night. I'm going to be very busy if I do that plus videos, so you'll probably see me tired a lot, but I want to thank you so much. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. And guys, I'm going to see you on the next Lore Reloaded. And now you're going to see my smoldering face, so I can wait that it's picked up on Voice on Demand.